The biggest challenge I have in this in business is being patient, right? And not trying to shortcut things, right? Because there's a million people and people that show up and say, hey, I can do blah 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 blah, or I can do this, or hey, we'll get you into here and you'll sell 10 million units, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and every single time I've tried to chase that rabbit, right, and say, oh man, that's great, I'm going to be blah blah blah. It can be time consuming, and you find out something that you probably knew right from the get-go. It's not quite your time for that yet, or it's not the right.
You could have gone with your gut on it.
And it's like you have to remind yourself, hey, every time you try to hop a couple steps, all you end up doing is making the process even longer.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Little Fish Podcast, where we honor, celebrate, and learn from small business owners just like you. I'm Joel Eschenbach, and as always, I'm glad to have you here. A few weeks ago, we talked about productizing your service business. Well, today, we're going to talk to Andy Yochum, and we're going to talk about selling products and maybe even servicing your product business, if we can say that. But Andy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here.
I was thinking how you'd say that. Servicizing the producting business?
Yeah, something like that. Well, we were saying, like, you sell products, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But then you're saying, well, I'm kind of trying to work on servicizing my products. So we'll talk about that. But first, you're with Boardwalk Food Company. Tell us what Boardwalk Food Company is and the delicious snacks that you sell.
Well, Boardwalk Food Company, we make craft beer flavored pretzels. And, I'm a big fan of craft beer. Enjoy it, the flavors, the complexities, the different tastes and styles. But the problem is I would go to the tap room and I'd have a couple beers and decide I want a snack, and they would throw in front of me these little wafer thin potato chips or these bland pretzels. And I'm thinking, I'm enjoying this very highly flavorful beer, and I can't have the same type of snack to go with it. And so the idea came about that, hey, let's make a pretzel that has that same kind of flavor complexity as the beer. Yeah. And the pretzels were born.
Yeah, and they're good.
They are good.
They're very good. Yeah, when you came out, I was like, I can't wait to try these. And I think my favorite, so we've got, what are the flavors? Stout?
So we do a stout, which is, just a dark roasted flavor with a little sweet at the end. Yeah. I do a Pilsner.
That's my favorite, the stout.
You like that stout? Yeah. It's funny. It's fun. The one thing that's funny about it is the different, it's like the beer, right? Everybody has a favorite, and still people will say, what's your top seller? It depends, right? Depends on what you like. But we have a Pilsner that's got a very light citrus taste to it. An IPA, which I don't have my IPA here. We had a run on IPA lately. It's been doing good. Very, very well. So that's kind of has a citrusy, like a grapefruit citrus with just that little hop taste to it. Yeah. And then our actual bestseller is our beer cheese. So the beer cheese is based on a southern dip that a good friend of ours would bring us every holiday, and it's got like a little spice to it, a little bite, and then it has a very caramely amber ale finish to it. So a real smooth finish.
I'll have to try that. I haven't tried the beer cheese yet.
You haven't tried beer cheese? I'm going to leave you with some because
I try it now, but
yeah, I was going to say, I don't know how our microphones handle crunching, but
it's probably not.
It'll probably gross out a lot of people out there.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Yeah, it's awesome. And so now you were telling me that you have, of course, all the snacks are available. The pretzels are available online, but you're saying that you're in more craft breweries now.
Yeah, we've done very well in specialty food stores and gourmet stores and like that, and some gift shops and beer and wine stores. But recently we've begun to expand our offering into more and more breweries, and that was kind of the original thought behind the pretzels. But what we learned was that our original, our 8-ounce size here, that we were getting feedback that, hey, they're great, but, it's too much to eat in one setting, and people don't want to have to, carry around a half bag of pretzels all night. So we did this 4-ounce size. You know, it's a little bit smaller, and it's you know, designed to be just eaten and gobbled. You know, but there is enough. It's a nice size quality. So if you're going to share it with your buddy, you know, everyone's going to get plenty. So since then, you know, we've really started to hit our stride in the craft brewery tap rooms. You know, it's just a natural. You know, you're drinking a really good beer. Now you have really good pretzel. It's got nice salt content, makes you thirsty. You know, everybody's happy.
Yeah, that's cool. And so, do you pair? Does it matter what type of pretzel you eat versus what type of beer you're drinking? Do people try to pair those together? A stout with a stout?
Some do. Okay. Some do. And some don't. You know, it's kind of what you're in the mood. You know, what you're in the mood for. You know, stout. You know, stout has such a distinct taste. I think they do end up being, you know, eaten with stout beers. You know, you know how stout fans are. You either like stout or you don't like stout, right? And that's the same with the pretzels. But other than that, you know, our Pilsner goes with just about anything. The IPA I made, so it's not super bitter, so you can enjoy it with a variety. And of course, the beer cheese, you know, we'll go with just about anything. It's cheese.
Well, and that's, you say that you made the IPA not too bitter. That was one thing I was struck by with all the flavors that I've tried, is that none of them are really intense. I think sometimes people think about beer pretzels, maybe they think it's going to be just like drinking a beer, and it's not. It's subtle, and that's what I really like about your pretzels.
I think it's funny. I'd say, you know, we hear that a lot. You know, I don't like beer. Well, try it. You know, my wife doesn't like it. She's not a huge beer person, you know, and yet she likes the IPA pretzels,
which is funny.
She can't stand IPA beer. Doesn't like the bitter at all. IPA but you know, it's
the most extreme beer.
But my thought process was, you know, you want to make something that if someone's going to open the bag, they can eat the whole bag, right? And I didn't want to have something that was so strong that after, you know, a couple bites, you're like, okay, I'm getting overpowered by this, you know, and I want to put it down. So, you know, now I do get some real big IPA guys that say, hey, it's not hoppy enough. And you're right, you know, and that's kind of the, you know, that's for a future product. But
extra hoppy. Hoppy
come up with extra bitter, you know.
Double hop. Double IPA.
Right. Well, one of the things Ryan and I were curious, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about, how did you get into making food in general, but, you know, making snacks and pretzels? I know before
you told me you only wanted to be 45 minutes.
That's true. We'll have to, because you did make a line of beer bread.
I did. I made
a while back, and those were really good.
You know, the abbreviated answer to that is I wanted to get into something to deal with beer. And I don't know how to make it, and I certainly didn't have any kind of clue as to, you know, how to do an actual beer. And so I thought this was a different way to do it. And so my original intent was to do something that you could cook with the beer itself. You know, you get your favorite beer, you know, and beer bread was a nice, easy kind of thing to do. But I realized that, you know, bread and craft beer, it's not exactly, you know, A&A. So I went to my my Philly roots, and I'm like, oh, pretzels, soft pretzels.
Yeah.
And so my wife, she had, adapted our recipe a little bit to make it more of a pretzel.
A soft pretzel, right? Because you were doing like beer bread poppers. I remember those.
Yeah, we're doing the bread, and then we did the pretzel, right? So it was something like, okay, you know, what can we do that's more in tune? And, you know, the funny thing with that was, you know, when I would make them and take them to places, people would just gobble them up, you know, and then we would sell it. But it was it was a little labor intensive, and it was something that it was more of a novelty. Like, we'll do it once. Hey, that was kind of cool, and then you know, and then that's that. And so it was more difficult to get repeat sales. And so it was actually one of my customers was like, boy, I wish you had these things already made. And that kind of turned the light on. So that was the journey. And then it became, okay, how do I do it? And you know, that there were so many steps involved there that we'd be here until midnight, you know, which then we would need to have a few beers and pretzels.
I know. I said we should have done this podcast in the afternoon. We could have had beer instead of coffee. That would have been perfect, but next time.
The topic gets a little shady around part two. It's
as you keep going. Yeah, right. Especially depending on which type of beer, if you're doing an IPA.
Oh, yeah.
Versus yeah, that's interesting.
Let me tell you something about that.
Right. So how did you end up coming up with the recipe? I mean, I'm just curious because I've heard a little bit about this, but I would imagine our listeners would be interested in this too.
It was so the first thing I wanted to do was actually take the beer soft pretzels I was doing and turn them into a pretzel.
Like a hard pretzel,
and so, you know, I started out with trying to find a way to manufacture it where I would take the beer, add it to the batter, and bake it. And you know, I couldn't find a manufacturer who would make these for me. You know, and I don't make them myself because, you know, by the time you get all the equipment and the certifications and all that stuff, it becomes quite a, you know, it's much easier to contract it out and find a source to do it for you. Well, I said, okay, well, if I can't do it with the beer, you know, how else can we tackle this? And so I thought, well, I was eating barbecue chips. I'm like, oh, wait a second, you know, I don't have to make a beer pretzel. I can make a beer flavored pretzel. And so then I started, you know, I went to my wife and I said, okay, we got to find a seasoning. You know, we got to focus on the seasoning. And what we did was we would make a batch, and we had our target beer. You know, it's like, one tastes like this, and we'd make a batch, and I would have it put on some pretzels, and then I took it up to local breweries and said, okay, I want this to taste. This is supposed to taste like this beer.
Okay.
You know, what am I missing? Oh no, you got too much of this, or you need more of this, or you need more of that. You know, and
would they just put it on their finger and taste it? Or
no, I'd have it on. I would make them. No, I'd make them.
Pretzels.
I would make them in the pretzels,
okay,
right?
Okay.
You know, I'd put it on the pretzel and take a bag.
Okay.
You know, it was actually a little, you know, a little Glad baggie of pretzels.
Yeah,
it was like the dealer up there, and I'd show up and you know, and he's like, oh, you need more of this, you need more of this, you need more. So I'd come back, adjust the recipe, get more samples made, go back up there, and you know, and that went on for almost a year. You know, just trying to, you know, kind of get something that we could come to market with. You know,
right.
And so. And so we did, and then it just became, okay, now I've got it. Now I just have to find, you know, the someone that would blend the spice, and then someone that would coat the pretzel, and then, you know, and get all those deals set up, and away we went.
And then you went with it.
Yeah.
Did you start with the IPA? Was that the one you started with?
I started with the IPA, the Pilsner, and the Stout.
Okay.
We did those three at the same time, and then. Beer cheese, like I said, beer cheese came along. We have a really good friend of ours who brings us beer cheese every holiday, and it's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And it just, you know, I was like, man, this would be good. You know, and you eat it with pretzels, so it's kind of like, hey, you know,
just mix it together.
Wait a second here, I need to
take out the middleman. Yeah,
I need to do something with this. So
yeah, okay, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about, you talked a little bit before about, I tried this, I tried the bread, and then I heard from this person that, hey, it would be good, you know, so your customer journey. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Listening to your customers, maybe going back to this idea of service-sizing your products.
Uh-huh.
What does that mean? What do you mean, but as we were joking about that, what do you mean by that? How you're shifting into trying to service-size your product, essentially?
Well, you know, I think in my mind, so my career's all been in sales, right? And so it's always been about, you know, product, call, you know, does it fit what you need or not,
right?
And sell it or go to the next guy, you know, and that's got a spot, right? And you have a small business, you got to be able to sell your product.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
But you know,
right.
what I started to learn is that, hey, you know, it's more than just, you know, I'm figuring out what the other half of the building always used to do, right? And so there's the marketing and the branding side, and I don't really have, I haven't really gotten into that so much, and so being able to develop the story and what does this do and why do you what's the message behind, what's the service that's being provided, why is something that I wanted to focus more on, right? And so you have a product and you can build this product and you can think it's the greatest thing in the world, right? And you're going to tell it to you're going to take it to your friends and they're going to tell you it's the greatest thing in the world because God bless them, you love them to death and all that, and they don't want to hurt your feelings, but
right.
and then you get it out there and you can take it and sell it, right? And good sales, you can convince someone to bring something on, but the key is, are they selling it through?
How do you scale it?
And are they going to come back for more, right? And so, I can't call that many people, right? And so it's kind of, so I'm like, I have to figure out how to servicize the product a little bit and say, hey, you know what? This product is awesome. It's going to enhance your experience. Here's how it's going to happen, and get that message out. So now people will see it and like, oh yeah, I want to try that. Or they go into their bar and they see it up there and they say, hey, I want to try some of those. I saw that on Little Fish. Hey, I want to see that. And start to get that message out a little bit more. So
right. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And I know originally at least we had talked. I think the focus is let's get this out to the retail market. We'll sell it online. We'll put ads on Facebook, and you do all that. But I think you found too.
I haven't done a lot of that.
You've done a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. At least I've been on this journey with you a little bit. Is we've experimented with different things, and what you found is that the wholesale side of it really ends up being, like you said, getting into the bars, getting into the craft breweries, getting into the would you say specialty markets,
especially gourmet
markets, and that ends up being your main source of sales, right?
Yep, that's my primary. I mean, I would say almost 80-90% of what we do is through wholesale, and that was mostly my that's my background. Right. And that's really all I knew. And listening to the customer, that was mostly, I'd call up and say, hey, you want to get some more in? No. Oh, really? Why not? Yeah. And you would take that feedback, right?
Let me pause you right there. Cause I think this is really important. The listening to the customer feedback. Because it doesn't matter if you have a service or you have a product or even if you're running a nonprofit, listening to the customer is key. But I think there's a little bit of an ego trip there, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
Where you're like, I spent all this time developing this service or this product or this whatever, and it's perfect. You should buy it.
Yeah, I mean, so my friends out there are watching. We'll get a kick out of this, but I have a little bit of an ego. I mean, it's just a small one, and also I can be stubborn, right? And you think I'm gonna, this is a good product. I'm going to sell it, and if you don't like it, that's your fault. And that's really not true. And you hear this a lot, and I think personally, it's the number one thing. If I could go back and do things over again, the word patience comes to mind, and I think no one has patience, right? And I think for business, for small business especially, you gotta be patient, and you gotta be willing to listen to the guy tell you, this is terrible, right? Or and be patient and say, hey, you know what? It's not. He just doesn't like this product. And that's valuable feedback, right? Yeah. And so you can't take it personally, and you can't look at it as, oh my God, I'm doomed, and you can't look at it as I'm going to be destitute in the streets. You take a look at it as, hey, he doesn't like it. What can I do? Yeah. And And that's it. That's the key.
And the fact that it's interesting because it seems like it's never really a finished product, right? We want it to be.
Finished.
We want it to be a finished product, and when you see it in the packaging, it is a finished product in some sense. But you're always listening. You're always adapting it. You're always changing. But also listening. I would imagine listening to the difference between people have opinions, and you're always going to have one or two off opinions, but you can listen to your customers as a whole and go, okay, wait, no, like that. I thought it was brilliant. The fact that you said we were doing soft pretzels, people liked it the one time, but then nobody really reordered or made. It was. You didn't say nostalgic. You said, I forget. But anyway,
I'm approaching 50. I can't remember things that.
Me too. The same thing happens to me. Yeah. But anyway, you said it was a one-time experience, and then they came back and they were like, they weren't reordering it.
Yeah,
but
it was fun. Yeah.
And I experienced that too because I made the poppers and I made the pretzels and it was fun. Yeah. And I had fun doing it one time. And then I don't think maybe I made them one other time.
You're not going to do it every weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But anyway, so you thought, okay, how can I adapt my product to what the people want? And that takes a big shift, especially when you went from the bread, the soft bread, and the poppers and the soft pretzels to a hard pretzel, because that's a completely different product process.
There's an element of, you have to accept that no matter what you make, someone's not going to like it, and you have to be willing to accept that sometimes they're going to be very direct in how much they don't like it. And people aren't always kind, right? And you have to take that, separate the emotional side of it, right? And say, okay, well, what are they telling me? Yeah. And you have to also understand that, not everything is I don't want this to sound wrong, but not everything is worthy of change. Not every idea is good, right? And not every criticism is necessarily something that you need to listen to, right? Yeah. But at the same time, you take this information, and as long as you're listening, as long as you're paying attention, you'll see things coming through.
Yeah.
I think shifting from soft pretzels to hard pretzels, that hits you like a brick, right? But I think that, also shifting from offering a smaller size bag, because you're hearing people say, hey, you know what, I don't want to carry around a half bag of pretzels when I'm at the bar. That's how that happens.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I love that part of it too, because that's back to the servicizing a product. What you did is you're solving a problem there. And we talk a lot and when we work with companies about messaging and marketing is first you got to talk about solving the customer's problem. And as soon as you stop talking about their problem, they stop listening.
Yeah.
So, but it's a little harder to do that in product, especially a product that you don't need, right?
Right.
So food, snacks, it's like you can't, with services, let's say you're a plumber. Well, it's easy to figure out what's the problem and someone's going to call the plumber, right? But with snacks, you're like, you really have to have this snack. But that was a great example of you're sitting in the bar or you're sitting in the brewery having drinks. You don't have a good snack. And like you said, you used to have the big bags in there and they were too much, but you're like, I'll just make a small bag. Boom, you solved the problem. And then all of a sudden now you've got these displays in these craft breweries, and they can grab a bag, for $3?
$3, yeah.
And while they're drinking, open it, snack, have some, share with friends, and throw it away, and they had that experience. Awesome. I love it.
That's it. And it's it's not something that the one thing about being $3, it's not something you're just going to sit there and wolf. And if you eat half of it and throw it away, who cares, right? It's something that you're going to enjoy. And you're going to sit there and eat it, and particularly because it's good, right? And so not only are you the consumer getting something that enhances your experience with your favorite beer. The brewery's getting something that keeps.
I was going to say that keeps them there,
keeps them at the seat a little bit longer. Maybe they order one or two more that they might not have done, and
because they're thirsty from the pretzels.
Yeah, and the stores. You have something that it's a nice incremental buy. They get their 6-pack of whatever and pick a bag of pretzels on the way out. And it's just a nice match.
Yeah, definitely.
But to your point, without focusing on that message, right? You have to have that differentiator. Otherwise, small business, I can't make the product at the same volume or the same price as the the little pretzel sticks that you get from some of the big boys out there. And so you have to be able to understand your fit, understand who's going to buy it, and understand what you bring to them that makes someone pay $3 for a bag of pretzels, versus buying some of the the big boy products, right?
Right.
That may not be as tasty, but
it's cheap.
Bingo.
Cheap and easy. And that's a good point, because you think about pretzels, you see them in your mind, you see them all on the shelf
all over the place.
at the Publix or whatever, and you're going, oh, okay, I'll just grab the one. Now that one's way more expensive, but it's true. You got to differentiate, just like anything else. And
that's that goes back to we were laughing about it before, but that's that and it's probably, I don't know if it's the right word or not, but servicizing the product is that you gotta show the service that your product provides. What purpose does it fill, and why is it going to make your experience better? And that's something that that I've learned. Hey, you got to focus more on that. You can't just beat down doors all day.
Right. Eat the pretzels. They're good. Try them.
Well, how sales guys can be sometimes. It's like, you know what, I need to ramp it up. Okay, great. I'm going to make 100 calls a day instead of 50, or I'm going to do, and I'm just going to keep on banging, and you're going to buy it. I'm going to convince you to buy it, and that doesn't work anymore. You just have to, there has to be that other side to it.
Right. And so you've found that niche in those different areas.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Always,
so have you had people that they've then tried your pretzel while they're having a beer in the brewery, and then they come back and buy it? Does that happen?
They're buying it in the brewery, so it's hanging up on the wall. And buy it,
like rebuy it from you.
Yeah, we've had a couple show up on the site.
Yeah,
I know they go back and buy it from the brewery. I've had a couple people say, "Hey, you know what? I went and bought the big bag at Morton's or some of the one of the local."
Lucky's
stores, or what are you, Lucky's? Rest in peace, Lucky's.
Not Lucky's anymore. Okay.
Well, no,
check that out the podcast.
They went bankrupt.
They did?
Yeah,
I didn't know
they
that.
went bankrupt.
When did that happen?
They shut down their stores a week or so ago. Closed them all.
Whoa!
Oh no, I take that back. I think there's one. I think there's one. I think there's one store they left open in Florida, and they've sold them to Albertsons, Aldi's, and I think Publix bought a few of them. But
that's a perfect example of, it doesn't matter what scale or what size you're at, adapting to the market and trying to figure that out. And I'm not saying they didn't, but it's interesting to see a brand that's so established like Lucky's, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're out of business. And you think, oh, they'll be around forever.
You see big guys go down. It makes small business like, oh crap, but there's lessons to be learned, right? There's lessons to be learned. They had a great concept. It was a fun store.
It was,
and it was a really neat experience. But there was like 15 versions of that all showed up at the same time, and that's tough. And that's tough. And I think. I haven't really, I've read a few articles on it and all that, so I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on what happened. But, it seems to me that it's like, you look at it and say, okay, what happened? What can I learn from it? And then, go on and try and replace business.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Well, is there any other issues you face in the industry? So in the food industry or the snack industry, I don't know what the technical term, what's the actual industry? You're in the snack industry?
Yeah.
The food retail business?
Beats the hell out of me. I don't know. I mean, the pretzel business.
The pretzel business. There probably is the pretzel business, right?
Food wholesale business.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, it's a great question. I sell pretzels. That's, and I sell pretzels to craft beer lovers.
Yeah. I love that.
That's my deal. Challenges, I think, I think, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? The biggest challenge I have in this in business is being patient, right? And not trying to shortcut things, right? Because there's a million people, and people that show up and say, hey, I can do blah 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 blah, or I can do this, or hey, we'll get you into here and you'll sell 10 million units, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and every single time I've tried to chase that rabbit, right, and say, oh man, that's great, I'm going to be blah blah blah. It can be time consuming, and you find out something that you probably knew right from the get-go. It's not quite your time for that yet, or it's not the right.
You could have gone with your gut on it.
And it's like someone will flash that, and sometimes it's internal, right? Sometimes it's like, hey, when's this thing gonna take off? When's you feel pressure to really go, and you have to remind yourself, hey, every time you try to hop a couple steps, all you end up doing is making the process even longer, because you have to come back, right, and say, oh crap, I just invested so much time and money and energy over here, and I
still got to go back and take these steps.
I got off my plan, right, and got off my deal, and so. That's the biggest problem I face. That's really the biggest problem. And then they come from everywhere. They come from everywhere. We can do this, we can do that, we can do this, we can do that. And staying true to your idea and your plan, and understand that it's going to take time.
Yeah. And you're the one that birthed the product. I mean, it's your baby.
Yeah,
and you gotta hold on to that. Yeah, that's so good, because I've experienced the same thing. People come in, they make a lot of promises, even in the service industry side of things. They get excited about stuff, and I mean, if I had a quarter for every person that came in, even to us, and was like, hey, we're going to bring you all this business. It's always the classic thing, like, if you give us a discount on this job or whatever, we've got all this business we're going to bring in. Never happens, ever, ever, ever.
And you're like, okay, and then you go down that road. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to pay you this, or I'm going to do that, and then it's, hey, your products look expensive, or this or that, and all the excuses start popping up, and you're like, oh, I should know better. There's no shortcut, and you have to build the story, and you have to build the experience. You have to build the why. Why do I want your stuff? Why do I want your pretzels? Why what's it going to do for me? And the way to do that is to work on the message, but also expand a little bit, get your core customer, and grow and grow and grow, versus, boom, I'm rich.
Yeah, trying to scale, which we look around and we compare ourselves, doesn't matter what industry you're in, to other behemoths in the industry, and you just want to follow that path, right? And you think, but what you see from the outside, like we mentioned with Lucky's, is not what's always going on the inside. And sometimes sometimes your ego gets in the way. I'm smarter than these guys. Ego gets in the way.
I know that the small businesses take this long, but I'm smarter than these guys. I'm more experienced. I know what I know what to do, and I can get there quicker. And you think that, and of course, the laws of business are quick to slap you back and say, no, you got to do it right.
That's true.
Nice try, hot shot.
Yeah. And you think if I'm not scaling faster, or if I'm not reaching this point, then I'm failing. But that's just not the case. Yeah.
Well, you have to come to terms with what failing is, right? Because you're going to fail, and I failed enough times so far to write a mini series for Netflix, right? It's just, and God bless my wife, she's awesome with this, right? She will always tell me, it's like, you didn't fail, you learned.
Yeah.
You didn't fail, you learned, and I've learned enough now. I could probably be a doctorate, get my doctorate in experience, but and that's, you have to be able to take that failure, understand it for what it is. Okay, I did this wrong. Well, I'm not going to do that again. And then keep moving.
Right.
And if you can't do that, then you're dead. You're done. You're finished, because nobody gets it right all the time. nobody gets it right out of the box. It's too hard. This is hard. It's so much harder than I thought it was going to be, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get something, make it, and then sell it.
Yeah.
And then get people to buy it twice is extremely hard.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that has to happen perfectly. It has to happen right, and it just doesn't all the time.
Mm-hmm. So with that, in terms of it being hard, because I can so relate to a lot of that, but what makes you stick with it over the long term? Because we know over time, small business, doesn't matter what you're doing, consistency over time is what really brings long-term success. Why do you stick with it?
It's funny. Let's see the right way.
I got you.
Well, no, I don't want to get too sappy or anything, but it's made me. This thing for me, it has changed me as a person in very dramatic ways, and so what I mean by that is you learn humility, right? It's a humbling experience. It's also something that you can't do it without a lot of help from other people. You learn gratitude, you learn appreciation, you learn sacrifice, you learn, all these things, and you have this whole new understanding of what it takes to do this, in terms of not just what I do, but what people in my friends who have been so supportive, right, in a lot of different ways. My family who's made sacrifices so that I can keep going, and customers who, especially some of these early adopters, who brought the product on and pushed it through, right, and so it's just such it's an emotional thing, right, and at the same time, I think it gives. For me, it's such a much better understanding of just humanity in general, right? When you're understanding that, you have to. It's difficult to explain, but I keep going because I like the person that's made me. When I was working for other corporations and I was just focused on hitting a sales number and steamrolling whoever got in the way, I was you got your beeper button over there. I was a jackass. Okay. I would tend to be, an ass and just high stress, high, pressure, arguing and fighting and not treating people always the way I wanted to. And so, getting away from that and doing this has turned me into a better, person, better father, better husband, all the way along. And so, we're not where we want to be, and we're learning a whole lot of lessons. You notice I didn't say failing. We're learning a whole lot of lessons, but it's also something I'm very passionate about, and I enjoy it. And I'll tell people I've never been more stressed out, but I've never been happier, and that's a motivator. That's a motivator.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, all of it. It's so.
I mean,
cool
it's sappy.
Hear.
I mean, it's sappy.
No, it's not sappy.
We'll get the piano music in the background.
But at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
But that's what it's about.
If you're going to get up every day and do this thing, and you're going to give your all to it, it's interesting when you were saying you were doing sales. You didn't have your blood, sweat, and tears and heart poured into that product or whatever that you were selling like you do this.
Yeah.
And you're giving your all to this, and this becomes really an extension of you. Yeah. As you put it out into the world.
And I think I was making six figures. I was doing a lot of things, but I wasn't happy. And I was miserable. And that translated into all aspects of short-tempered and snippy and intolerant and you got to face that a little bit, and just say, hey, you know what, boy, I was a real jerk. But, and you kind of, but like I said, now it's like, okay, yeah, this is mine. I'm building it. So many people, you just, for me, it's just so many people do so many things to help, and to bring things along. And you have to learn you have to learn how to develop relationships and deal with people who, you may disagree with, or how to handle things when, there are people who are going to come along and, hurt you or do something that may be damaging to your business, but you have to be able to deal with that, and you have to be able to move on, and you have to be able to put it in its spot and go. And I think rather than it's just I don't know. I'm babbling a little bit, but
No,
it's hard to express.
It's
hard to express. It's one of those things. It's like, God, I wake up in the morning, I'm like,
you're ready to
I'm
do
happy.
it. Yeah, and it's because the truth is that stress and challenges that you're that passionate about, that's really what brings happiness anyway. Mm-hmm. And joy is when you have to go up against a project or a challenge that seems like it's insurmountable, but somehow with the help of others, you can conquer each step. And I love what you said about having to rely on other people. I want to go back to that for a minute before we wrap up. Relying on other people, I think that also flies in the face of our culture, especially in the business world, because it's, hey, I'm a self-made man. I pull myself up by my bootstraps. The fact is that doesn't happen to anybody.
No.
Nobody is a self-made anything. They just discount all the people or don't mention all the people that have helped them along the way. And I think that's so important, such an important point.
I think that, and you look at a lot. I mean, first of all, you don't see people until they've made it, right? And so you see these guys, and they're doing their thing, and they're, and you don't see the, you don't see the 20 years ahead of that, or Bezos in his garage, right? With whatever, but
and how many people helped him?
Yeah,
how many people sacrificed their time, energy, talents for that vision that he put out there?
And it's really humbling, because in our society, and I think to your point, people, there's so much of that negativity in the news and the politics and all this other stuff. And so sometimes people get this idea that, and this was me, okay, I'm talking my own experience. Everyone's out to get you.
Yeah.
Everybody's out to get you. And if you don't have your guard up, someone's going to screw you over, or someone's out to, take what's yours. And I found that that's really, I mean, of course there's people out there that are going to take advantage of you, but there's that's far in the minority, and that most people, they're good. They want you to succeed. They want to help you. They understand what you're trying to do, and it's a great view of society. What society really is. I think that, and most people are good. Most people want to help. Most people want to see you succeed, and it's an eye-opening thing. And you want to sit there and say, "Hey guys, everybody chill out.
Yeah.
We're all on the same page.
That's right.
We're much more alike than we are different. Let's,
Yeah, you're speaking my language. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this podcast. Honestly, is like, look, I'd sit across the table and we'd have conversations like this, and you just realize there's so many people in the small business community, which is huge, right? That they're just working hard. They're helping one another. There is a real sense of community. And sometimes there's some competition, but I find that more times than not, the competition's more of I've heard people say a co-opetition, where you're kind of cooperating, you're in competition, but you're working together.
Well, I'll tell you a real quick story on that. And this was early on, right? And I was going up to different breweries and just having conversations about, whatever, my pretzels or mixes or whatever. And I noticed that every time I'd go in there, I started noticing these collaborations, and, I'd be at one brewery and, another brewery was in there and they were helping them with this or they were doing that. And I'm saying, and I did. One of the guys I was talking to, I said, "Hey, I'm just kind of curious." I said, there's not a whole lot there's only so many taps in the bar, and here, you guys are in here doing, oh yeah. And his response to me, and this was, one of the gentlemen up at Big Top, and he says to me, "Hey, here's the deal. We know that, hey, my beer might be on the tap this week. His beer might be there next week. I'll get this shelf space because there's room for everybody. And reality is we're all in this together, trying to build a movement around these craft beers. And so, that's our mission. And I'm like, that's fantastic. I mean, I love that. I love, because I can't, again, at that point I was still in this, you have to keep your secrets and you have to, don't share your customers because someone's going to steal it, right. and all this and that, or don't tell people how you're doing things. And, and I'm like, man, you're sharing how you do this. And it's a much better experience, right? And I learned it's like, you know what? There's plenty of room for everybody if you have something that has some value. I mean, and I go in there and people are like, well, aren't you worried about this? Aren't you afraid someone's yes, sure, someone will copy it sooner or later. Right. It's not that big a deal. And if you walk into a supermarket and you see there's 30 different kinds of barbecued chips. It's not like it's not like there's no room.
Right.
And that mentality. Like you said, that mentality, the co-opetition or whatever you said. I think that's pretty cool. Anyway, but I mean, it's like, it was it was eye-opening. And I'm like, wow, I really love this industry. I mean, it's great because it's like, that's right. There's no reason for me as a small business to try and smash you as a small business because there's plenty of room for us both. So instead, let's learn from each other. Yeah. What's working for you, what's working for me, and together, we grow our business and have a spot for it.
I love that.
Oh man, that was such a key conversation to what it changed my whole mindset on what I want to do.
And when everybody, we all win when everybody wins.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
everybody wins.
Truth. Everybody wins. We all win.
There's plenty of room. You'll buy my pretzels today. You'll buy his beef jerky tomorrow. You'll buy, whatever it might be. I think. There's just you can get so much further working together, for both companies or for both businesses than you can, and it's also so much healthier mentally. Yeah,
it is.
When you're sitting here like, I'm not going to tell you how it's made.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you what my best seller is because you'll cheat me, and it's like you get such a paranoid mentality and it's miserable.
Yeah, it is.
Miserable. And instead you're like, oh man, this is great. We're all... you're having fun. You can walk into a place, have a conversation. Is someone going to screw you eventually?
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you let that go. And when it happens, my wife's like, she's amazed at this now. It's like when it happens, hey, I let it go. Yeah. I'm not going to give that any more time or energy. It happened. Okay. What do I learn from it? And then move on. And you let go of that.
Yeah.
You let go of that poison.
That's good stuff. Well, I'm going to end us here because that just was such a good point to end on. To keep in front of us.
Sorry, I could talk you. I could talk your ear off till the end of time.
All good stuff. It really is. Well, okay. So back to the pretzels. If somebody wants to buy the pretzels, what do they do?
Well, you're going on www.boardwalkfoodco.com. First-time users, you sign up for our newsletter. We do 10% off first order.
Awesome.
And we sell them in packs of 4 for the big guys and packs of 6 for the 4 ounce. Have a great combo pack if you want to give all of them a try or pick a 4-pack of your favorite.
Awesome.
And then we also are in many breweries, fine grocers everywhere.
Cool.
Check it out.
Love it. And they're good. They're good pretzels.
Thank you.
They really are good.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I think so. Yeah. That's the other problem with the thing is try and stay in shape. Good luck.
Beer
and pretzels. Yeah, okay.
That's a tough one. Well, Andy, it was awesome having you
Thank
on the
you,
podcast.
Joel. That was a great time. I appreciate it. Great job with this. I love it. I listen to it regularly. I think you're doing fantastic.
Awesome.
Nice work.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Hey, and thanks for joining us for another episode. If you have somebody, a business owner or somebody who would enjoy this podcast, please share it. We'd love to get the word out more. If you want to subscribe on YouTube, if you're an iTunes listener or Spotify listener, actually iTunes specifically, we'd love more reviews there. So yeah, we'd love it if you share, and thanks again for listening or watching.